50% of our services became irrelevant overnight. Services such as hotel sourcing, air travel, and project management of AV equipment were no longer needed. Prior to the pandemic, 40% of our focus was on virtual meetings and 60% was on live meetings. We had to stop, train, and reassess the entire staff while pivoting to virtual meetings only. That quote came from Andy McNeill, the CEO and founder of American Meetings, Inc. It was part of the cover story for Affinity magazine in August 2020. Without question, the tourism industry has been irrevocably changed by the experience of COVID. As destination organizations reassess and rebuild, one thing we know for certain: we will come out of this significantly different. The relevance of tourism to our respective communities has never been more important. The engagement of stakeholders in a meaningful and ongoing fashion has become an essential part of our role and function, and the shift to agile, socially based digital marketing has become equally important. In the midst of this seemingly endless cycle of adjust and readjust, there's still no absolute clarity on how things will be in a post-pandemic world. That chapter has yet to be written. I don't think any of us sees ourselves returning to pre-COVID models of meetings and events. Suffice to say, it will indeed be different. The meetings industry hasn't just been hammered by the realities of restricted travel and gathering. It has had to reinvent itself, not just to serve its own business interests, but to serve the rest of us and our needs to communicate, to connect, to share, and to do business. Our guest today is Andy McNeill, CEO of American Meetings, Inc., and he's here to talk about the wholesale changes that AMI had to make in the crisis and to talk about what he thinks the world's meetings industry will look like when we have this pandemic in the rear view. Morning, Andy McNeill. How are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Hey, David, thanks for the opportunity to be here. So excited to talk to you today. We are in beautiful South Florida. It's about 84 degrees, blue skies, nice wind out of the Northeast. Couldn't be better. Just had the Blue Angels fly by my office. It's Air and Sea Show weekend here. So I'm glad they're done because you might not have been able to hear me, but so glad to be here and excited to talk to you.
Well, I would give my left arm to see the Blue Angels right now. That was one of the high points of my life, is the
I'll
air
send
show,
you a
for
video
sure.
afterwards, okay?
All right. There you go. It's great to see you. You are a Florida person, Florida boy by birth, right?
Yeah, born and raised, Palm Beach, Florida.
And if I'm not mistaken, college for you, sport was soccer and cheerleading.
Soccer, high school, cheerleading, high school and college. Yep.
Well, it's great. It's great to have you here, Andy. I know we got to speak a few weeks back. AMI has been through such incredible changes. Like the rest of us, come last March, you were absolutely, sort of stopped dead with a wall of challenges to deal with. Give us a top line of what 2020 looked like for AMI and what it looked like in the meetings industry.
Well, like most people, it started out really, really well. We were on an economic high. Everybody was rolling and just, banking it and having a great time. Fantastic staff, was growing at a great clip. And, I was at a conference in New York City. It was the first time I heard the word COVID. And that was on February 23rd. And immediately I was like, this is going to be bad. We work with large Fortune 500 companies. That's our target market. And those folks are very risk adverse. And they're still today risk adverse. And so we knew that we had to make a quick change. We were lucky that we already supported virtual platforms for a few of our clients. And we were able to transition over the course of about 3 months, pretty much everybody. But it was a huge lift. And I can't thank enough for the hard work and dedication of my incredible AMI team that just did an amazing job in a very, very difficult situation, from learning new softwares to having to train clients on what running a virtual meeting was like, all the time, not knowing when live meetings were going to come back. And so we've kind of had to, parse that and have two strategies in place. And now we're doing hybrid meetings for folks where we're, doing the live meeting, but then there are some attendees that don't come for a variety of different reasons. And there's still that hesitancy in the market. So we're going to see that for a while, I think.
So going back prior to the pandemic, this is an interesting rear view mirror looking observation. The technology we needed to run meetings successfully, either in their completely virtual form or their hybrid virtual form, that technology was in place. And I feel like we as the world community just simply had not embraced it to the level that it was capable of delivering on. So we find ourselves, and I say this many times in meetings, as a friend of mine, Dan Holloway from CrowdRisk, said back last spring, every interaction we have now starts and ends likely on one of these, whether it's ordering groceries,
Mhm.
Skyping your parents, getting registering for
If your
your
parents can use Skype, which, that's not always going to happen, right? You're not always going to be able to use it, but when they do use it and you're not looking at their ear, you might be able to pitch.
you're cracking me up because I spent about an hour and a half with my mom yesterday going through trying to use the cell phone effectively, which she can do on and off. Good point. Good point. But the bottom line is you've always been an early adopter of virtual meetings technology. But last January you were hit with the idea, and I want to know this, when did it hit you that everything we were going to do for the next 12 months was completely focused on what you'd been doing as core business? I mean, you go to work every day and you're an essential part of the meetings industry and an essential part of successful meetings. But come last March, it was everything all of our partners, all of our customers are doing is going to be on this platform. When did that hit you?
It was a phone call I had about 2 weeks in with one of our largest clients, and I was talking to the great partners, and we just had a fantastic relationship with them for over 7 years now. And I had a call with them. We were kind of strategizing on live meetings, what their policy was going to be, and I got a message from their chief travel officer, who was in charge of their entire strategy, saying that as of 5 o'clock today, these employees were no longer allowed to travel. And so we just knew right away that had to adjust and pivot and be ready, because at the end of the day, people still had to meet. We knew that, and we had to support that in any way we can. Our biggest challenge, Dave, was trying to figure out very quickly which softwares to support, because every software is different. There's different, bells and whistles, security standards, compliance issues, and we had to choose a wide variety of them and then just stick to those and make sure that we could service those and train our staff to support our clients. And we did that. We're lucky from that perspective, but it was definitely an investment we had to make, and it paid off.
Well, that's a really interesting observation. So, in your core business prior to the pandemic, you would pick your platforms and use the most effective ones. That's part of being the CEO, is defining which ones make
Well,
for the
yeah,
best
I mean, it's just a lot
product.
of times the organization will say, we'll recommend one to a
Yeah,
company or an organization, and they'll vet it through their IT group and decide what's good for them based on, we have several that we can use. There's great enterprise level platforms out there. But there's, depending on the industry that you're in, depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the event itself, some are better at collaboration, some are better at broadcasting, some are better at creating, real life virtual experiences, like AI. So it really depending on where you're headed. And so we try to guide that, but we can't support everything. I mean, there's so
right.
many of them out there, and there's more every day. So we have to be able to decide which ones we can support that are going to do the greatest good and be able to provide as much service and different type meeting types and technologies to our clients.
I'm going to bet you're supporting more variants of technology than you were a year ago.
Well, yeah, well, we started out as a live meeting organization, almost 20 years ago, and now we really are a technology support organization. At least today, we stand in that scenario where we're supporting technologies, and we're supporting meetings through technology, which we always knew would be part of the mix. We didn't know it'd be 100% of the mix, and I do believe moving forward, like you said it in your intro, that it is here to stay, and it's always going to be a mix when you have a live meeting moving forward.
Well, and you made some really good points on that, which is it's going to be here to stay, not just because of the restrictions of COVID and the difficulties, but we've learned some things in here
Yeah,
that are
we
really
did. We like
valuable.
our families, right? We like to be around,
Big
right?
one, big
Not
one.
anybody, not anybody on this podcast listening today would say that they didn't enjoy some net benefit of being with their loved ones over the course of the last year. It was definitely a benefit, and we all realized I felt like I got more out of my team with them working from home, less commutes. We were able to expand our team a lot more globally and use people in different parts of the world, which helped with languages and culture issues that we've had in the past. So definitely some net benefits coming out of it.
You talked about cost savings being one of those benefits. Let's look at
Yeah.
the previous model of travel and accommodation. One of the things we're not going to be able to ignore going forward is in-person meetings. I am a huge fan, and I always believe that you can do so much in person. I'm also a big believer that if something's mission critical, you pick up the telephone.
Yeah.
But this idea that we were all going to way too many meetings way too easily certainly has been floated by people other than me. We were,
Yeah.
we lived in the heyday of travel, didn't we?
I absolutely we did, and I think our society's changing culturally in a lot of different ways. Climate change is a big deal now, right? And it's always been a big deal for some of us. We have a sustainability program called the Attend Tree Program. We plant a tree for every attendee that attends any of our events to offset the carbon footprint of those individuals. And I think that's going to be more in the mind, especially after a year. In addition to that, these large corporations, and again, we work on the corporate side, saved a lot of money over the past year on travel and sponsorships and hotels and all that. It's definitely, and they can see that it can be a mix and still be successful. And that profitability. If you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company right now and you just saved $200 million in travel and accommodations, are you really going to have to try to make that up in 2021's already done, right? Most of them aren't traveling. We just heard from one of our largest clients this past week that they had extended their travel ban all the way through the end of this year. And this is a very large organization. So it's definitely there, and it's going to come back. It's just going to be different, and we all need to be prepared for that. As as a destination, how you can do that is there's lots of different ways. And I think the destinations that are forward thinking and working with people like us who want to bring our attendees back to live live locations. We do believe that there's nothing better than a live connection meeting. Those are raw relationships, and deals are done. But at the end of the day, and education is really good live as well, right? But at the end of the day, it's going to be a mix.
Well, McKinsey pegged international business travel spending at 1.4 trillion. So 21% of the global travel and hospitality sector. Mr. Bill Gates says in his missives, 50% of business travel is going away forever, not just meetings, but business travel.
Yeah.
And FocusWire says it'll take 5 years to be back where we were, with the caveat that you and I just talked about. We'll never be back there the same again. But in that time span, in that 5 year span, meetings still have to happen, and they have to happen effectively, and they have to be
Absolutely.
well. Let's be really honest about this. We got to the point where we're really good with meetings. So if you're going to replace an in-person event and a meeting that you have built a culture and a following around, you're going to have to do something remarkable when it comes to the hybrid or the virtual meeting, aren't you?
Absolutely. We're always looking for new and different ways to expand the experience for the attendee, and that's getting harder and harder. The great thing is I think there's going to be an inflection point with virtual technology for meetings and AI. They're kind of coming together and heading towards the same direction. And the amazing things that are being done on AI now and how that's going to be integrated into virtual experiences is really exciting. So you're going to be able to have a great experience, if you can't make that live meeting. I think what's incumbent upon the destinations is, embracing the technology and taking it to the next level to provide that experience for those attendees virtually that might be really, really cool and showcase their destination, even though it's on the technology itself. And then provide that technology, whether it's videos or integrations with APIs, so we can pull that experience into our technologies. The cities and destinations that do that, I think, are going to be really, really successful, because those attendees, they might be there virtually for that business meeting or that event that they were going to, or that wedding, whatever it's going to be. They might do it virtually, but you know what? In 2 months, they might take their family there for a vacation and stay at your property. So I think there's a real opportunity there to grow your business and expand your brand of that destination for sure.
Well, Andy, I am glad you were thinking about these things, because when you say that, it really hits a nerve with me. When you look at the whole meetings industry, where we um, entice a group of people to come to a destination like St. Louis and have their meeting there, and then we show them what the town has to offer, and we take
Yeah,
them to the ballpark. That's a big part of the cycle. It's not just the meeting and the heads and beds and the revenues. It's the
the
idea.
experience. Yeah, I mean,
In,
yeah,
go ahead.
absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say it's the first. I mean, by far and away, 85-90% of the time, destination is the initial deciding factor of what the meeting experience is going to be. We don't start talking about the AV or the general session or the breakout rooms until we know where we're going, right? And it's about generating and creating that experience, whether it's incentive program, whether it's a national sales meeting, whether it's a collective of professionals coming to look at data for a particular pharma meeting or a pharma client. It's about creating that experience around that meeting, and the city or the destination is a huge part of that.
So let's look at how that happened pre, and let's look at how it might happen post. So pre, the interesting thing is you get into the city, you come in through the airport or whichever channel you come in through. You're in the city. You're probably immersed in the city for 8 to 10 hours before a meeting or event starts, a 1 or 2 day or 3 day
Yeah,
event. By the time your host gets up on stage and welcomes you and thanks you for being here, you've taken in some sights and sounds and smells.
absolutely.
Um,
And smells. Yeah,
and smells.
depending on where
That
you
has
are. Yeah, for sure.
that hasn't happened. That isn't going to happen. So it's not even as simple as, I mean, in our existing meetings, we would throw in a cool video of place to kick off a meeting,
Yeah,
but that was just the highlighting of what you already knew. How are we going to create virtual destination awareness? Because it's not just as simple as a 3 minute video of St. Louis, is it?
yeah,
We're going to have to be really creative. And I look around at our friends in the gaming industry who are
yeah.
being really
Exactly,
creative.
exactly.
How do we do it?
Well, let's give an example of utilizing AI in that traditional general session opening video, like you talked about, showing the destination, how exciting it is to be there. Imagine, shipping a pair of Oculus glasses to each one of your attendees, which we've done before, and different, more for education, and they put those things on during the general session. They're actually inside the general session. They're there. They're experiencing the video with everybody else in the room. And that technology is here. It's not like I'm making this stuff up. It's already there to do it. Now, I think costs have to come down, but the experience itself can be extended to those people that are sitting, a world away. And still be able to get it. And then, taking, developing content with that in mind, using AI and the different softwares that you can now to create those experiences and then build that into your program, I think will be a huge benefit for anyone that does it.
Wow, that's intriguing.
And,
So,
and it's not a cheap investment either. So I think the CVB should be thinking about how can we support our local businesses and what technologies can we provide them to provide to other folks, whether it's the hotels, the restaurants, all the people that make a great event. So they can, when they're promoting the city, they have this information for the people like me who are coordinating the events and making sure that our clients know what they can do.
okay.
Lots of exciting things happening.
Well, so that concept though of an immersive experience, you said a point in there. Right now, it's expensive, and we all know people who've got decent VR setups, and
Yeah,
people, it is expensive. But just like the proliferation of Zoom and Google meetings, the sheer necessity to use it over and over is going to drive that price down
yeah,
very, very, very,
absolutely.
very quickly. So, can I look ahead 5 years and actually get excited about the virtual experience I'm going to have going to a conference in Montreal, where I could look at it and say, unlike, the conference is on during business hours and after hours, they take you and show you, it's going to be this hybridized thing where actually I can immerse myself in the destination and attend the meeting, and that'll all be part of the day program in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the world's our oyster from this case. I think what I was talking about earlier was immersing the at-home attendee in a very similar experience as the live attendee. And listen, I think the live attendee experience is always going. I mean, we're human, we're social creatures. We like to get away from our families. We like to travel and experience new destinations. That's not going to change. I think what's going to change is how you can take that experience, not only for the virtual people like I was talking, but what you just mentioned is also immerse the live folks in it as well. So that collective experience of those attendees is as close as it can be to each other. So everyone inside that general session room might have the Oculus glasses as well to watch a speaker that is being shot in from Australia. I mean, and that person is sitting right in front of us. And he feels like he's right in the room, and we can ask him questions, and he can see us too. So he's looking at, a bunch of Oculus glasses, but he can see the attendees as well, and they can interact and create that experience. The kind of the one world concept is coming very, very fast. I saw a stat the other day that more technology is going to come at us in the next 10 years than that came at us in the last 50. So just think about that. Where we all were 50 years ago with technology and where we're going to be in 10 years. It's going to be truly, truly a wild ride. And how you can incorporate that stuff into your destination is critical.
Isn't it interesting that the stimulus that creates that situation is COVID? Because I mean,
yeah, right. It's kind of antithetical, right? It's kind of the opposite. Yeah.
We go back to '69, and they said, the technology that we put up in the lunar module, which was less powerful than a Timex Sinclair computer, it took 15 years before most of that had been reintegrated back into society. This is happening at a much, much faster pace.
It really is. It really is.
So I'm excited about what it can be, but let's talk about some of the things you learned along the way. You're trying to basically take physical groups of people in a place and virtual people in the ether, the internet, put them together in a way that's effective. What have you learned along the way?
I've learned that no two meetings are alike. I've learned that people who think they are technology savvy are not necessarily technology savvy, and there's a lot of training going on in today's business world. If you're a brand manager that ran meetings in the past or as part of your strategy, having to learn the virtual technologies and the capabilities and how that's going to impact your clients, I think one of the greatest benefits is the reporting capabilities. The data people are getting on their attendees is so much more on the virtual side than it ever was in lives. Yeah, we could do the push buttons, and we could take things with the live audiences, take polls and surveys with live audiences. But now we can talk, what percentage of people are engaged in the event, which people are answering the questions, and all that is real time live. So the meeting champion can make the decisions. Well, this isn't working. This isn't effective because I need to switch something up in the afternoon because I'm losing my audience here. So what can I do to make it better? So that's where a great webcast producer comes in and is there to provide guidance and things as that data is coming in real time.
So, Andy, are you saying that AMI has an increased role and function in data that maybe it didn't have before?
So yeah, I mean, the reporting of educating our clients about what data is available to them in the virtual spaces, and then how to digest that information very quickly, and then make decisions that make the overall experience better for the attendees. It could be educational content that you're trying to get absorption on, and people are answering questions wrong, so that you need to go back and maybe do that module over again. It could be people are not downloading certain things that you want them to download. So, you need to make sure you get it to them in some other fashion. So there's lots of different ways to do it. But the point is that all those interactions and data is being recorded while you're on these calls. So you can make those decisions because you're getting the data. You didn't necessarily have all that data. It might have been, subjective or, from what you were experiencing visually, but you didn't have concrete data to make those decisions at a live meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we may transmit pictures digitally, but which we watch them in analog and still made edit decision
Yeah.
lists. Totally, totally. So, U.S. Patent Office, one of the definitions of an invention is a unique recombination of existing technologies for a different purpose.
Interesting. Okay.
What's some of the stuff you've seen? And I'll give you a hint. The one that I really loved. I've seen some things happening in the virtual space that I think are really cool. That I got to admit, I didn't think they would work. So I was in a European symposium, and they decided we would have 3 minute speed dating sessions, which sounded about the dumbest
Uh
thing in the world to a 57-year-old guy living in Canada, right?
huh.
And I got to tell you, I begrudgingly went into it, and I had more fun and did more business and learned more about people by trying something like that. So I was utterly impressed. And to anybody listening, if someone says, "Hey, come to our conference, and then we're going to have a 3 minute speed dating session," anybody log into this portal, don't miss it. It will blow your mind. It's totally cool. What kind of things have you seen where people are innovating with the tech we have and doing stuff we didn't expect?
Yeah, we call that B2B matchmaking. It's incredibly effective, and it's a way to see a lot of people in a short amount of time, and also be able to find out who's a good fit for you and who's not very quickly. So yeah, that's a great one. The technologies that I've seen that have been really really impressive, and I'm really looking into the AI stuff now, is the ability for a speaker who is not anywhere near you for you to have that kind of interaction, to the extent that they're from making sure that that speaker's eye contact is with every single person because he's in a virtual space, right? How cool is that?
Wait a minute. Is
um,
that doable? Is that
yeah, all this stuff
no,
is doable nowadays. I mean, you're not looking at him from a frame of other people in the room. It's just you and the speaker in the same virtual experience. And so those situations, and then from a speaker perspective, a lot of times it would be kind of one way. You'd have a speaker on a virtual thing, but now we're putting cameras inside the rooms, and then they're able actually to see the attendees as well and answer questions and interact with them. You're seeing a lot of the AI where people are becoming avatars. That's a
yeah,
really hot thing
yeah,
right now.
yeah,
It had a rough start about 4 or 5 years ago. There were a lot of
right,
security issues with it,
right.
but now some real players have gotten into the space. Um, uh, Microsoft is launching a brand new system as we speak, and it is pretty cool. And so those interactions and being able to be kind of that, you see Ready Player One, you watch Ready Player One.
Sure did.
All right, so same idea, but now take it in business context. You're in this virtual space, and me and Dave's in Toronto, Andy's in South Florida, and we're interacting in this virtual world with each other, able to interact and have a conversation, and then turn around and walk away from each other and go have one with someone right next to us virtually. So kind of a networking. So I've seen that happen. That's happening as we speak. There's a lot of things happening with kind of um, bringing in speakers not only to the virtual spaces but into live sessions where they are in um, uh, technology that makes them look like they're there. There's
Wow.
a there's
You're
a
talking
there's
like you're talking like holograms.
like holograms. There's several companies have been doing that for years. We've looked at that technology a lot. It's expensive, so the price has to come down on it. But there are some solutions that are just as effective. There's one called Portal, not Facebook's Portal, but just Portal. That's really really impressive, and it's a box, but the person looks like they're there. So because he or she is three-dimensional. So a lot of really cool things happening, but it's really creating that immersive experience, and not forgetting that you're, moving down the road, you're going to really have two audiences. You're going to have the folks that are in the room and the folks that might, choose to stay home and, because their daughter has a play that week and he's going to go ahead and watch it and, improve his quality of life. That's a hard That's a hard thing to beat as a dad, right? You want to
Yeah.
be able to do that, but you don't want to, you want to still grow your business or be successful in your space. So you're going to want to be there. So it's going to be an interesting ride. I do think conferences and trade shows are going to be um, even more embraced on the virtual side because of the sheer fact of volume of number of people together.
Yeah.
There's going to be this hesitancy to be in large crowds for a long time. Um, uh, and I think people, you have to fight that as well as the quality of life issue and the cultural shift that we're seeing. So all those things are kind of playing together. No one knows where we're going to end. There's still going to be, 100,000 people at the Super Bowl next year. I have no doubt, right?
Sure.
So it's going to be a little of both.
So, if you take at one end of the continuum, sort of the worst video you can think of, which I think of as the city council meeting. Do you remember
Oh
watching
Lord, yeah,
city council meetings on civic cable, and it's one locked off camera at the back of the room?
yeah.
Yeah. Do you know where the band The Talking Heads got its name?
I do not. I'm sure
Okay,
you're going to tell me though.
this is a really interesting story, and it's relevant. So apparently at Idea Lab at MIT, Nicholas Negroponte was running Idea Lab. They were commissioned by DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project, to come up with a system that allowed the 3 or 4 or whatever number of mountains in a nuclear strike to communicate with each other, Colorado
Mm,
and Alaska and whatever. And they knew this. They knew that the proxemics of people being in a room were so critically important to concise communication. So, me being in the room, you're looking at my body language, you're
yeah,
seeing if I'm paying attention. So, what they did at MIT was they developed a room, and in the room, there was a boardroom table with 12 seats, and 12 seats had 12 dummies, and 12 dummies were dressed in uniform, and they had glass glass what do you call them, mannequin heads with CRT tubes, and so they use the animatronics, same as
yeah.
Disney, for the bodies. So if I'm sitting in Colorado and you're in New York, you have you wired up in a suit, and when I leaned in, my animatronic body would lean in, and my face would project it into this glass head, and my lips would flicker, and it looked like I was talking. And apparently, Byrne and Tina Weymouth got to. They were from Boston. They got to go through, and they said, "What's this?" And they showed them the project, and they said, "Oh, it's called the Talking Heads."
Oh
So
no.
that's the legend as to where their name came from. I believe that's out of Negroponte's book. But isn't it interesting? I mean, it's a funny story, but the underlining of that is how critically important our being together is, and how it's not simply transferable to 2 dimensions, and how hard we have to work to make it work.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do also agree that virtual reality is coming so quick and so fast. Back to my what's going to happen over the next 10 years, that you're really going to be having um, uh, a lot of things, a lot of different things happen that make it really cool. Like it's the experience, like and so you're not only getting to do virtual, but you have this brand new experience that you never had before. So that's really exciting. But I agree that live meetings and live experiences, that we're social animals, that's going to continue. And people who are in business, they love to travel for a variety of different reasons to experience the culture, the food, the nice hotel that they're staying at, a variety of different things. So we're definitely going to see. I know that airline bookings as we stand today are through the roof because people are ready to get back out on the road and experience things again. So I think we'll see a mix. It's just going to be a little choppy, I think, for the next few years.
It will be not the same, and it'll
Not the
be
same.
3 years of continual change till we hit some stasis, I'm sure. But a lot of things will be for the better. Andy, I thank you for being here today. I like the work AMI is doing. I want to applaud your commitment to climate change. That's a big deal for me personally.
Absolutely.
Um, and I just want to encourage anybody who wants to talk about meetings, who wants to talk about ideas, to reach out to AMI. I'm going to give the floor to you. One last comment: sharing with your peers in the industry, destinations, convention centers, meeting planners, DMO marketers. If you could share one thing, what would it be?
Well, first and foremost, thanks, David. I had a blast, and thanks what you're doing and getting the word out there. I would say everyone strap on and hold on. It's going to be a wild, crazy ride. Please, I encourage you to hit me up on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to everybody. And if you want to find out more about AMI, you go to AmericanMeetings.com and learn all about us. We have a podcast called Destination Everywhere, which was our way during COVID to reconnect with the CVBs and the hotels and help support them. and we are launching that, and now we're continuing it. So if you're interested in being part of our podcast, go to AmericanMeetings.com podcast. But everyone, it's going to be a wild ride. Stay tight. I know it's been a rough year for all of us, and stay there. It's definitely getting better. And Dave, thanks for the opportunity.
Andy, thanks for being here. Have a great day.
You too.